Hey, today I'm going to show you how to put some some straight inlays into your fingerboard necks. This is something that I do on some of my guitars once in a while. I find it looks really nice, gives it a nice finished look to the fretboard. Here's one that that's already all ready to go. It's just drying right now. As you can see, there's 9 maple strips that are going along the fretboard. These are glued in place. And I'll just snip everything off and glue this to a neck, bring it all down when I raise it, and it'll look nice and flush to the surface. I'll also put some fret markers on the front here and one on the side. So this inlay stripe essentially kind of connects the 2 dots, and it's in line with the frets as well. So it just gives it a really nice visual appeal. So here's one that I started as well, and I'm in the process of finishing. And I'll show you how to do a few of these. Before we do that, let's talk about some tools and some techniques as well. Basically, you only need 2 or 3 tools for this. So for me and for the way that I do this and for the materials that I have access to, just the saw that I use for cutting fret slots happens to be the same size as the veneer that I can buy. So when I'm cutting all my fret slots here, I'll just add in an extra line where I want the markers at, all the way through, same depth as well. And I just take a ruler and I divide the space between the frets in half, mark it, cut it, and then I get my room for my inlay there. So yeah, your fret saw works. This is just the Zona one. I think it's like $15 or something. It's fine. You definitely want to sharpen it before you do it. The crown one that I use as well is really nice. It does the job a lot faster. It cuts on the pull stroke, and it's just a lot easier on your body as well. So I prefer that one, but the Zona one works fine as well. Another thing you'll need is a pack of veneer. So I get all my veneer for this, all my maple veneer from Lee Valley. They have a 50 pack of maple veneer business cards for about $5. And one card is enough to do an entire neck, at least for what I'm doing. So it's pretty good value for veneer. Veneer can be really expensive, but this works out really well, and it's saved me a lot of money. The next thing you'll need is just some glue. I use Titebond because it's close and it's really good. And then you'll need a saw or a way to cut the veneer. And I found that the best way to do it for me was to use just this little marking gauge that I made. It's actually a cutting marking gauge. And this is from the Veritas miniature marking gauge. So this little spindle here with the cutter at the end, you can buy from Lee Valley for about $5. And I just put in a piece of oak here that feels somewhat comfortable in my hand. And I've got a bolt here and a set screw so I can get it to the depth I want and then lock it in place. And actually on this piece here, I also inlaid a stripe down the middle of maple. And that's essentially the same process we'll be doing. So I use the same saw to cut that kerf, and then I put the maple in there. So for this, I find about 6 millimeters is the distance that I like. So the distance between the fence and the cutter here is about 6 millimeters. And with that, I can get 9 or 10 strips from a business card. I have enough to go into each neck. Another thing you'll want here is just a piece of scrap wood. This is a piece from a cutting board that I'm working on, but you just want a way to hold on to the veneer and have a straight reference as well. And the way this setup works is usually I would just hold it on the table, but I can show you this because it's pretty easy. You want to put your veneer on top of your cutting surface. Then you want to square up the fence of your marking gauge and just bring it down onto the veneer and just start scraping away from you. And you'll keep cutting deeper and deeper, and eventually it'll just break off until it's ready to break off. And there we go. We have 2 pieces of veneer that have straight edges on them you can use for this purpose. So that's the cutter. And then also, yeah, use Titebond. I've told you that. So yeah, I think we're all ready to go. Oh, another piece you might want to have is just a little piece of sandpaper. This is just the radius, the bottom of the piece of wood. Right now it's square, and it's, if you have a U channel on the bottom, it just kind of slots in there nicely. Once you get the glue on the veneer, the maple expands a little bit. Once you get it in the slot, hydraulic lock comes into effect and it starts being harder to move, so you want to move quickly when you get in there. What I do is I get it almost in place here, and I like to drop it and move it at the same time, and it'll be good. So for this one here, I can tell it's a little stiff. I like to move a little bit better than that. So the sandpaper, I'll just take the sandpaper here and remove just a little bit off, like the bottom. You really don't need much. Yeah, that's moving a lot better now. Once it's in place, I'll mark it as well, so I know how much glue to put on. And I'll remember also what side is the channeled side, or the sandpapered side. You want to put on just a tiny, tiny little bit there. Oh, that's way too much. And then coat it all good. You don't really need a whole lot. You wipe off the excess on whatever surface you have. Yeah, here we go. So we have the glue on, the channel that we just sandpapered is down. I'm going to go straight into my frets. Sorry, not the, yeah, the inlay slot here. Yeah, and that's just going to get dropped right in. There you go. Now I check that it's well seated on the left side and on the right side, which it is. And there you go. All you have to do is wait for it to dry. You can snip it off, and once you radius your fretboard, they'll come back down to the surface.